And welcome back to glorious downtown Boogertown. I'm Buford.
I'm Booboo.
And you're back with another episode of the Hillbillies and the Holler podcast. Well, I have to say, I don't know if you know this or not, but my wife, Beulah Dean, is our biggest fan.
Oh,
She watches every podcast.
well.
She don't watch it because she's interested in what we're talking about. She just likes to see if I cleaned the house before we started filming. But today, I fooled her because we're in my office, and so...
As you can tell.
It's always a mess.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. Y'all enjoy it. And as Booboo says, it just gives the room character.
Yes. Two of them.
Two of them.
Two characters.
Well, we've had a good week this week.
We have.
You and your lovely wife, you went to see Dale Jones and his
Dale
wife.
Jones. Jody White. She's a comedian too.
Boy, I tell you what, he is a funny guy.
He's hilarious. He's all over. He's like a social media star. He won Last Comic Standing, and he's so funny that 10 years later they take the top 10, the winners of each year, and have them compete against, and he beat them. He beat the winners.
He cracks me up.
I laughed so hard I was screaming for him to stop. I can't breathe. Just stop.
I saw him on social media the other day. Said he was told the audience. He said, "I can hear you talking to your friends about the show tomorrow night. Tomorrow, your friends will be like, 'What was the comedian like?' And you'll be like, 'Ernest goes to crack,' because he does. He looks like Jim Varney, but he is off the rails. So funny. I hate I didn't get to go with you, but I had my boys that night and had to watch Jasper because Beulah Dean was on the road, and of course, you know, comedy shows are not always the most appropriate place to take a 12-year-old, so I had to stay at the house. But love to have seen him. I'm gonna catch him next time he comes through town. But yeah, so things have been going good here in Boogertown, and we've
It's hot.
it is hot.
It is hot here in Boogertown. We put a thing up on that Facebook said, "I say it's so hot, the hens are picking up worms with pot holders."
That's hot.
Some of the other people said things like, Jeremy said, "It's so hot, I just saw a funeral procession pull through a Dairy Queen drive-up."
I heard somebody tell a story about that, and no joke, said they went through a McDonald's drive-through because the place they were burying the guy was like 60 miles from where they'd had the funeral.
Yeah.
And they got to going, and the boys in the hearse were like, "I'm kind of hungry. You hungry?" And they pulled through McDonald's. Oh,
Let's just take them through a car wash.
what's the fella in the back having? Oh, he ain't eating today.
I ain't eating today.
But yeah, they
He's died. He's on a diet.
He's on a diet. Yeah.
He's on a diet.
But we had it's been hot. We had that little thing we did with AI a couple weeks ago where we tried to get AI to come up with "it's hotter than a whatever," and it didn't do a real good job of it. That video's on the YouTube, which, by the way, if you're listening to the podcast, you can watch it on YouTube, and if you're watching it on YouTube, you can listen to it on your favorite podcast platform. But
Jeff Houston says it's so hot their eggs are coming out already hard boiled. Pretty hot.
it is hot. It's so hot, I saw a dog chasing a cat, and they was both walking.
Really?
I saw two trees fighting over a dog. That was it.
Mark me! Mark me! Mark me! Come over here and mark me. Oh, that's good.
But it's been warm. We're in the dog days of summer now, so should be cooling off before too long. And then before you know it, the leaves will be changing, and we'll be doing Christmas lights. And it's funny how life speeds up.
It is. Cameron Jim's talking about that tree chasing a dog begging for water, and Ted Hartley says it's hotter than 2 mice making whoopee in a light socket.
That's hot. I've heard in a wool sock.
I've never heard that before.
I heard what they said was hotter than a fox in a forest fire.
Wow.
That's hot.
That's pretty hot.
That's pretty hot.
That's pretty Monroeville right there is what that was.
Little interjection there from our buddies in Monroeville.
We're on this social media trying to block all these robots and...
Lord, I tell you what. And it's so funny. We have, and I know a lot of it's robots, but we put videos up almost every day here on YouTube and the other platforms. And you get these little comments. And
would you send me a friend request?
Well, yeah, there's those. And then there's nasty comments, political comments. And the funny thing is, we don't do politics.
Lord, if they knew how each one of us Thing is, and we all get along.
Yeah, there's other stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But we get little comments all the time about assuming what our political beliefs are and things like that. And just nasty sniping comments.
Which makes them look stupid because they don't know what we know.
Yeah. And it just, it brings me back to what I always say.
What?
Be good to each other.
Just be good to each other.
Exactly. It's not that hard.
No.
Just instead of assuming the worst about somebody and saying something ugly about them, just be nice. You might find you have common ground.
Your brother Conrad P. Williford nearly choked to death over the mercantile this morning.
Mm-hmm.
He was eating a moon pie and his gizzard went into an eclipse.
I'm not sure what that means, but it don't sound good.
Needs an RC or something, doesn't it?
I'm telling you, you got to wash it down. That's right.
Wash it down.
I'm telling you what now, talking about moon pies, if you come to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, you got to go to the moon pie store.
That's probably my favorite store.
It is, because it's not like every other gift shop in town. Mostly of gift shops, unfortunately, you go in and you see the same stuff, the same 10, 15 items. But that store's really got a lot of variety. They've got old-fashioned candies. Of course, they got moon pies and RCs, and they got a lot of other goofy sodas. My boys and I got some pickle-flavored soda in there.
Pickle flavored soda.
Yeah, it was actually interesting because I expected it to be vinegary, but it didn't have any vinegar to it at all. It was basically sweet and dill flavored. It was interesting. I mean, I'm not going to drink a 6-pack of it, but
no,
I tried it. And they got bacon flavored soda, ranch dressing flavored soda. They got a whole big barrels full of classic candies that you don't find everywhere. And they got a huge book section, including a large section of local history, which is where I get a lot of my books that I use for my research for giving people tours around this area.
You're our Mountain William.
And they got goo-goo. If you don't know what a goo-goo is,
Goo cluster.
you're missing out.
That's about Nashville.
That's right. The Grand Ole Opry. Goo, G-O-O. Grand Ole Opry. It says the candy's so nice they had to name it twice. Goo-goo.
Goo cluster. They're good too.
You know how the moon pie got its name?
How?
This is
Does
interesting.
it look like a moon?
Well, this guy down in Chattanooga that had this baking company was trying to come up with a good packaged snack that he could sell, and the whole idea was that it would be something a fella could take to work in his lunch pail. So he was going around to all these different factories around the Chattanooga area, asking them about what they liked, what they would want in a snack like that. So he said, he was talking to these guys on a loading dock one time, and they got to talking about everything, and he said, well, how big would you want this thing to be? And he said the moon was just coming up. This was a third shift thing. And he said this old boy went about that big. And so that's why they call it moon pie. Yep.
That's a great
little story. Yep. A lot of people don't know. Moon pies come from Chattanooga. RC Cola comes from Chattanooga. Little Debbie's come from Chattanooga. A lot of stuff.
And moon pies come from Nashville.
Goo-goos. Yeah.
Goo-goos
come from Nashville, yeah.
Moon pies come from Chattanooga.
I saw this comedian from up north down here. This has been 30, 40 years ago.
Cast iron comes from Pittsburgh.
That's right. South Pittsburgh. This comedian from up north, his name was Joe DeLion. He said, I went into a store and a lady asked me, would you like a goo-goo? He said, if somebody I don't know asks me if I want a goo-goo, do I say yes? I don't know. I said, what's a goo-goo? She said, you're not from around here, are you? I said, no, honey, I'm not. She said, well, it's kind of like a moon pie. So, well, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah.
He said, why don't you just call it a butt cake?
Cleared that up.
But anyway. So, yeah, things have been going good here in Boogertown. We got some big news coming up. Nothing we can share just yet, but it will be coming out soon. And when it does, you'll all go, what?
Do what? They did what?
They did what now? But we're excited about it. Things are going good around here, and life is good. We had a whole bunch of people give us some really cool comments earlier this week. We did a thing on that Facebook.
That's what I'm trying to find.
Your favorite country expressions.
Uh-huh.
I follow the holler.
Oh, there's.
Let's play again.
I follow the holler.
Dale Jones and his wife.
Jody.
Jody doing the thing about they follow the holler.
Yeah, they follow hillbillies in the holler. Isn't that awesome?
And we follow them.
We do.
Funny stuff.
They funny stuff. Let me see if I can find it. I'm too busy. Got all these people here wanting to send them friend requests and robots, and then when you look up there, they only have like 2 friends or 3 friends.
Yeah.
And they're not real people.
No posts and yeah.
They're not real people.
But yeah, while we're talking about that, let me go ahead and warn some of y'all. If you're on our Facebook page or anybody's Facebook page, and you make a comment on a post, and then somebody comes on there and says, "Hey, send me a friend request," don't do it.
It's usually either a real pretty woman or somebody in the military, some man. It's like a captain or general or something like that.
Yeah, they're scammers who are trying to get into your social circle, and you don't need to let them do it.
They're not. They're just scammers.
Yeah. So it's funny, on TikTok, I had about between 20 and 50 followers a day, and yet over the last year and a half, I've slowly been declining. And it's because TikTok is going through and purging those robots and getting rid of them. So
you was talking about those country sayings. Megan Flowers said, when I was mad or upset as a kid, they'd put their hand under my mouth like a cup and say, "Cry me some. Make me madder."
They used to do that to me. They'd say, "Oh, here, cry for us. We need the water. There's been a drought."
Oh, Lord, that'd just make you madder with
it. Yeah. That, or they'd say, "That's the world's smallest violin, and it's playing My Heart Bleeds Peanut Butter for you." I never understood what that was supposed to mean, but
peanut butter.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Well, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
You got me thinking about one that
real country boy Josh.
My grandpa used to say, "A fool and his money are soon parted," and then I would always follow it up with, in most cases, they was lucky to get together in the first place. My daddy always used to say. My daddy always used to say.
What did your daddy always say?
No, that's what my daddy always used to say. He'd always be quoting his father. If I heard that once, I heard it a million times growing up. My old daddy used to say.
Old Pappy. Old Pappy.
Old Pappy. Old Grandpappy.
Art Burleson. He's one of our favorite people.
Yes.
He makes all kinds of funny comments and go in there, and he's a show with himself. We're trying to get him to come to the holler and see us. But Art said, my dad told me a time or two that he could take my brains and convert them to gasoline, and it wouldn't get enough power for a piss ants go-kart half a lap around a Cheerio.
That's when I put this out as a short on YouTube a while back, but it's a true story. My grandmother used to say I wouldn't give a nickel to see a piss ant swallow an elephant, and my grandpa would always say I'd give $1 to see him after he did.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why.
All my guests bring happiness, some by coming, others by leaving. That's Vicky Liddy. Thank you, Vicky. Try to read these before I quote them out loud. Marty Martin Ball, B-A-U-G-H. How do you pronounce that? Is that Ball?
Ball.
Mary Martin. My mother used to say, I'd like to buy them for what they're worth and sell them for what they think they're worth.
We know a few people like that. Ain't gonna name any names.
And she said, my grandmother used to tell someone to charge it to the dust and let the rain settle it. That's good. I had either. I like that one.
Charge it to the dust, let the rain settle it. That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Well, we got another one here. You go ahead and talk about something.
You reminded me of one there. When you talk about buying them for what they're worth and some for what they think they're worth. And I can't think now what it was. My grandpa used to have one that he used to say. My father always talked about people who were educated beyond the scope of their own intelligence, and I've met a lot of them over the years.
Hey, Tanya Salmon Funk says, my dad's favorite was, I'll do it and skin it at 60 seconds less than a minute.
Skin it?
60 seconds less than a minute.
I actually did a conversion chart years ago. I used to own a magic shop, and I made this little conversion chart that went from a hair to a big old buttload, and it was a conversion chart for things like a pinch and a smidge and there's two hairs in a smidge and two smidges in a pinch, and then you get all the way up to a big old buttload, which actually a buttload it used to be an actual measurement.
So was titsful.
A butt was a type of barrel.
Yeah.
So a buttload was a barrel load, but I forget how much it was. Now, I know a hogshead was 63 gallons. A hogshead barrel was 63 gallons. whereas most barrels these days are 50. But
Ashley wants is busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox.
yeah, somebody else commented on there, busier than a one-armed paper hanger in a windstorm, which adds a whole nother degree of difficulty to it.
Just when you didn't think it was tough enough. When Terry Norton Beasley said, when someone sneezed, my granny would say, "Scat there, Tom, your tail is in the gravy."
I've heard him say scat, but I've never heard the rest of it. Yeah,
Tom.
that's funny.
Never knew what that meant.
I have had a friend that used to exaggerate a lot, and our friends that we had in common would say, "He don't exaggerate, he just remembers big."
Betty Trout, I gave a lot myself. Hotter than a cat on a hot tin roof.
Mm-hmm.
And my mama used to ask me to do a chore, and I'd say, "Wait, Mama," when I didn't want to do it then. And then she'd say, "Wait is what broke the bridge down."
All right.
Then.
That's like can't never could. Heard that one growing up.
Now, I've heard this before. Danny Truitt says, when my dad thought I'd done something kind of dumb, he would say, "Use your head for something besides a hat rack."
That was one of my favorite lines from the sitcom Friends. There was a time when Joey did something that was kind of clever, and everybody just looked at him surprised, and he went, "Not just a hat rack."
Not just a hat rack.
Obviously, somebody had said that to him before.
Susan Gailey said, my dad used to tell his kids, "Go do something, even if it's wrong. Just go do something.
Yeah.
Or go play in the street."
That reminds me of what Ron White used to talk about. My grandfather used to say, "That boy's got a lot of quit in him." My father used to tell me, he said, "You'll make a great manager. You're just lazy enough to get the job done."
Jerry Jewell, I've heard this. Are you serious? Serious as a heart attack.
That's pretty serious.
If y'all have any, go in here and post them. Or
Yeah, put them in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear them in the comments of the video. Also, if you are listening to the podcast, especially on Apple Podcast, give us a review, because that's how people find the podcast. And they say that you should wait about 2/3 of the way through the video before you ask people to like and subscribe and all that stuff. So we're about there. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we're putting out new podcasts. And we put out short videos every day. So your phone will ding at you and you open it up and then you'll see, hey, the Hillbillies in the Holler put out a new 10, 15-second short video to make me laugh. Have a little fun with us. What you got?
Daniel Rice said, "See a buck-toothed person. So they could eat corn off the cob through a barbed wire fence."
I've heard through a picket fence, yeah. And
then somebody said they could eat corn cob through a picket fence and thread a needle 100 yards.
Somebody might have commented this here, or I might have read it somewhere else the other day, but she was so cross-eyed, she cried, tears ran down her back. That's bad. That's bad.
We got a gutter down there.
It's like that gutter we ran into at
the old catch-all.
Booboo and I went to the place here in Pigeon Forge the other day called Goats on the Roof. And we're sitting out on the front porch, rocking chairs, just sitting there relaxing. Sunny day, beautiful. And all of a sudden, there's goats up on the roof. That's why they call it Goats on the Roof. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, liquid just started gushing down this downspout. We made a short video about it you can find here on YouTube. But I said, it's a sunny day. And there's something coming down that gutter. I don't know what it is. And Booboo said, "You smell asparagus?"
Asparagus? Smell like asparagus. They're feeding them goats asparagus.
Woo!
Jan Southern says, "My grandma always said they thicker than thieves, and a child you slower than molasses."
Or I've heard slower than molasses on a January morning.
Edie Pfeiffer just said that. I remember slower than molasses in January.
Yeah.
It'll move in the winter, but it moves slower.
Yeah.
Arthur Friedman said, "When my grandfather was sick, and I assume diarrhea was involved, he would always say he had the galloping consumption."
We used to call it the green apple two-step. Because, you eat too many green apples and that'll happen. Yeah, run right through you.
Oh.
The galloping consumption.
I never heard that. I love it.
I got to write that one down.
We cutting the switch. if you don't stop. It's usually a hickory switch. You
Yeah.
gotta go pick it out yourself. Mine doesn't even have a hickory tree. Never understood that.
Now, we lived in Texas. You had to be careful not to get a mesquite tree because they got thorns on them. That adds a whole new degree of difficulty.
We had weeping willow trees. It turned Mama into Indiana Jones.
We had to. I one time told my grandmother I was out there for about a half hour looking for a switch, and I come back in. I said I couldn't find a switch. Here's a rock you can throw at me. She didn't think that's funny.
Here's a rock you can throw at me. The stoning.
Let the stoning begin. Let the one without sin cast the first stone. Apparently, she didn't have no sin. She bounced it right off my head. By the way, speaking of that, I gotta ask everybody.
How many would like to see things bounce off my head?
I'm just curious if anybody else thinks that this might be bordering on child abuse. Have you seen this new viral trend where people are cracking eggs on their kids' heads?
Yeah.
And the kids, you know,
They're stunned.
they stop. They'll be acting like they're baking with the kid, and they take the egg and they go, bam, just bouncing off their head. And these 2-3-year-old kids are going, like, what? Why did you do that? And I'm thinking,
Is that a shake 'em?
It's cute, but is it child abuse? It don't look good. I don't believe I would do that.
Anything makes a child's head go back like that, that's not good.
It's just not a good idea.
No.
I mean, I understand it's funny, but I just don't know it's a good idea.
Of course, they had me paying on electric fence at that age.
Oh, yeah.
Learn them early.
That'll learn you.
They'll learn
I
them
won't
early.
do that another time.
Not again.
Not again. That's for sure.
They make you tough. We got to toughen him up. You ever heard that? Got to toughen him up.
Yeah, well, like I think that was in A Boy Named Sue, so you'd either end up tough or dead, you know.
We live so far out in the country that the sun set between us and town. Danny Truitt said
That guy told me the other day, he said lived in a town so small that the reduce speed and resume speed signs were on the same post.
I love it.
That's a small town.
That beats all I've ever seen. You ever heard that? Beats all?
That beats all. I Swan.
I Swan, yeah.
Or I Swanee. I've
I
heard that one.
Swanee. Well, I Swanee.
Oh, I used to work with this old comic, Freddie E. Smith used to say, he'd say, I come from a little town called Spivey Mountain. Population 244. Never gets any bigger, never gets any smaller, because every time a baby's born, somebody leaves town.
It all averages out. That feller, Diamond Jim says that feller lies so much he has to pay somebody to call his dog.
My daddy used to say he'd climb a tree and tell you a lie before he'd stand on the ground and tell you the truth.
Burley May told Diamond Jim. One of my buddies used to say about his brother, he told the truth one time, but dang if he didn't lie his way out of it.
That's awesome.
Talk about some negatives here. Tony Phillips says my dad's can't never could do nothing.
That's right. Can't never could.
Oh,
This episode brought to you by the National Association of Prevaricators. They tell you what time the meeting is, but you couldn't believe them.
this is neat. Michael Wilson said, I read an old love letter from my grandfather to my grandmother when he was in World War II. And he said, the river is long and has many crooks. I hope someday that you'll be my cook.
Oh,
In another letter, he said, the ocean is wide and I can't step it. I love you and you can't help it. That's romance right
that
there.
is romance. That is sweet.
And creative.
And I bet she loved that letter.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, she must have kept it.
She kept it for them. Your boots in the oven don't make them biscuits.
That's right. Well, so it'd say, Grandpa, you say your cat may have babies may have kittens in the oven, but that don't make them biscuits.
Gene Mudd says, not everyone is as perfect as you and I, and I'm not so sure about you.
Well, I've said that to you many times. I say
Yeah.
the whole world's crazy, but for me and thee, and I ain't real sure about thee. Yep, that's for sure.
My father, Kathy Springer Van Slyke, that's a cool name, Van Slyke.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy Springer Van Slyke said, my father-in-law used to say he'd lie on credit if the truth paid cash.
it's says
Y'all got
something.
some great ones. Y'all got some great lines here.
Says something about the human condition that we have so many expressions about lying.
John St. Chancellor, and I've heard this. I'm going to tell you something, but you have to promise. Stays just between me and you and that fence post.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I started out as a magician, and I'm all the time getting my wife Beulah Dean's the worst one. We'll watch a magic show, and she'll say, "You know how he did that?" And yeah. Well, you gonna tell me? No. And I was doing a show up in Ohio this summer, and there was a magician in the show, and he was on stage performing, and all the other guys in the cast were back there, and they said, "Do you know how he does that?" And I said, "Yeah." And they go, "You gonna tell us?" And I said, "Well, if I tell you, will you promise not to tell anybody else?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's what I told the guy that told me." And they went, "Dadgummit, you ain't gonna tell us, are you?" Nope.
That's great. Tina Ellenberg said, "Sew buttons on a balloon and get a big bang.
Yeah.
If wishes were horses, beggars would ride."
If a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt when he hops.
And she said, "I didn't stutter and your ears didn't flap."
Have you heard that kid, Drew? I think it's Drew Lynch. It's the comedian that stutters. And he did a bit about that. He said, the guy came up to me and said, you can't make fun of a disability just because you have one. And I said, "Did I stutter?"
You know, how my mind goes. There's a scene or somewhere where is it James Earl Ray? Not that's
that was the killer.
Not the great actor, James Earl
Jones.
He comes in there stuttering, and people's just like, "Man, that's great. He's such an incredible actor." I said, "Well, here's what's incredible. He's a natural stutterer.
Yes.
He's stuttered his whole life, and it's created great discipline for him not to stutter. That's why he speaks the way he does. This is CNN.
Right.
I am your father. Yet speak it out very slowly."
He's very deliberate in his
Because
speech.
he has a severe stutter. And so when he did that scene where he was stuttering, people were like, "That is the most incredible thing we've ever seen." That's something he spent his whole life trying to stop.
Exactly. That's the thing that people don't know is
This is CNN.
he had to overcome a really serious stuttering problem as a kid. But it was a teacher that gave him the confidence to do it. And I got to say, I saw a video today that was absolutely amazing, and it was Dan Povenmire. I don't know if you know who Dan is. I follow him on TikTok, but he plays the character Dr. Doofenshmirtz on Phineas and Ferb. Mm-hmm. He's a voice actor, great voice actor. But he was talking about how when he was in high school, he was being interviewed by this lady, and he said he had a teacher that really inspired him, and the teacher was asking everybody, "What do you want to do when you get out of school?" And he said, "I told him I want to go out to California and try to be an actor." And he said there was a few kids in the back that laughed, and the teacher was like, "Hey, don't laugh. You know, I think he's funny, and I think anybody in this class can do it. He can." And he said, so a few years later, when I was out in California and doing well and things were going well for me, he said, I called and got his number, and he said, I called the house and asked for him, and his wife said, well, no, he's in the hospital for back problems. But and I said, well, if I write a letter, would you get it to him? And she said, sure. So he said, a few months later, I get a phone call, and it's my teacher, Mr. Mitchell was his name. And he said, I just wanted you to know that you saved my life. He said, when my wife told you I was in the hospital for back problems, that was a lie. I was in there because of depression. Oh. And I was really nearing the end of my rope. I thought I've never made a difference in anybody's life. And he said, your letter came at just the right time.
Wow.
And I sent that to our daughter, who's just started teaching this year. I said, you will make a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
Just never know.
You just never know. So, and you never know when somebody that you're dealing with on a daily basis is getting near the end of their rope. So just be kind, be good to each other, take care of folks, and
treat people like you'd want to be treated.
And don't act so ugly that they come up with country expressions about you.
They don't have you in mind. Terry Hollis said, my daddy and grandmother's favorite, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. I've heard that many times.
You know, and I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I have heard that does not reference water running in the creek, but it's about the Creek Indians rising up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you'll hear like that sound good that may not be.
Tony Martin, Loretta Martin says, shut the door. Was you raised in a barn? Heard that before.
No, but I worked in one for years.
See, what I don't understand with that is we always shut the barn door. If we leave the house door open before we leave a barn door open.
Yeah, because if you leave the house door open, a horse ain't going to get out.
Yeah. My dad used to say, this is Dolores Burgess. Well, if that don't beat a chicken pecking with a wood bill, it means if that don't beat all. Robert Potts' grandpa used to say we were so poor as children that we ate cabbage for breakfast, drank a glass of water for dinner, and swelled up for supper.
I've heard that with popcorn too. Said he ate popcorn for breakfast, drank water for lunch, and swelled up for supper. That's that reminds me of another one. The guy said it was so hot that said my grandpa was plowing the corn and the corn started popping. The mule thought it was snowing and he laid down and froze to death. That's hot.
It is. Lolly Brown says if one didn't understand something, he said it was get in, I'll drive.
Like, don't you worry about it, I got this.
And Cole says grandma used to say when she got mad, I'm so mad that make my hind end want stove wood. Maybe, did I say that right?
Grandma used to say, I'm so mad that make my hind end want stove wood.
It's all fired up, isn't it?
I guess she's all fired up. Her hind end needs some stove wood.
It's all fired up, as we say, fired up. And Deborah Bentley, I made me a mess of beans. You know, a mess is a measurement, like you were talking about measurements. Mess.
Yeah, it's in there. A mess. Well, I read one this morning about a guy said this girl took her friend to meet her grandfather, and her grandfather said, "What do you allow?" And the girl said, "I don't allow nothing."
Really good.
So dumb he couldn't pour pee out of a boot if the directions were written on the hill.
Steve Savage.
Thank you, Steve. That's a good one. Well, we sure do appreciate y'all coming back and hanging out with us here in Booger Town another week. This has been a fun episode. I think I'm going to call it Express Yourself.
Country Expressions.
Country Expressions. But we appreciate
y'all. Make sure you tell us something we left out. Because there's a million out there.
We might put them on the
we
next
might do
episode.
Part 2 and we'll quote you on it.
Yeah, so tell us all about that, and thank you for watching. Tell your friends about us. Spread the word. We're trying to build this thing up, and if you enjoy what we're doing, and at this point in the episode, usually is just the real hardcore ones are still watching. So if you'll tell somebody, if you're watching right now, and you'll tell somebody.
Yeah, if you're watching right now, you'll definitely tell someone.
Yeah, because you care and you're enjoying this.
You've made it this far.
God bless you. But we do appreciate it.
I guess you better judgment, but you did it.
And we're, like I said, we got some big news coming real soon. We'll tell you all about it when the time comes.
And if you're seeing us for the very first time, we're on all the social media, especially Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. Go on there and watch our videos. We got sketch comedies, and it's not just me and Buford. We've got Diamond Jim, Biggins, a whole bunch of the other Buford. We got all kinds of
Reverend Williford
people from Booger Town, and we do comedy sketches that are in the vein of, how's it you say, you take a blender and you put Hee Haw, Monty Python,
The Monkees.
The Monkees TV show.
Put it all in there and hit frappe.
And that's Hillbillies in the Holler.
Welcome to Frappalachia.
Frappalachia. There's a t-shirt. We've been working on some merchandise for Frappalachia.
Well, we appreciate y'all coming. Oh, there's another one you didn't talk about. Is Gator.
Gator.
And the Gator, if you're listening,
Howie Mandel
is still doing fine. So in the meantime, I'm Buford.
I'm Booboo.
Y'all be good to each other.